T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast. Today we wrap up our discussion with Jason Helton. And we just want to remind once again, we'll be handling some adult topics. And so listener discretion is advised. We will join that conversation in the middle of the discussion of how being exposed to the intranet can have a negative impact on younger people. And we will have that conversation after these important messages. This episode of the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast is presented by Faulkner University. Faulkner University is a private Christian liberal arts university based in Montgomery, Alabama, with a mission to provide an education anchored by not only intellect but also character and service. The Faulkner experience aims to educate the whole person. Every individual matters every day. We all want to become better versions of ourselves. No one wants to remain trapped where they are because of missed opportunities and unrealized dreams. At Faulkner University, we believe your dreams don't have an expiration date. We understand that you're looking for more than a degree. You want to find your niche and thrive in your career. Whether you're a high school senior just beginning your trek or an adult student looking for a better path, Faulkner is here to help guide your journey. Go to faulkner.edu to apply or get more info. That's faulkner.edu.
When you have access to what the world has to offer of sexual appetite and you're 12, like of course you're gonna question things. Like you're getting aroused by these things that are just bizarre and weird and strange and violent and dangerous. And you're 12. You don't know how to rationalize any of that.
And not to mention that a lot of, and you've already kind of hit on that, but a lot of people believe, hey, once I get married, that goes away. That I was struggling with that. And so I got married. Mm-hmm. My wife's going to take care of all that. I don't need to look at it anymore. And then they find that that's not the case because they have, as you've already alluded to, bonded to that. And that's just something you don't just let go of all of a sudden. So right. It's a situation that this doesn't just go away. So you might start it at 8 or 9 or 10 or 12. And it continues on in your life, and it morphs and changes with whatever the technology is. So you're right. Mm-hmm. That conversation's got to be had.
If you shot with your right hand all your life and you're a good jump shooter, Klay Thompson has probably shot millions and millions. Steph Curry, millions of shots. Well, if he starts to teach himself, which I guess Steph is probably a bad choice because he can shoot with his left a little bit, but for the normal person, if you go and you start to say, I'm going to be a lefty, that's a hard transition because you're not only having to teach to do this, but you're having to unteach all of the muscle memory on one side. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to this. When you've taught yourself to be a consumer of sexual appetite, you've taught yourself that your passions need to be gratified immediately without question, without any consequence. That doesn't generate very well to a marriage relationship when there's an actual other human on the end of your desire. When there's another person, when there's headaches that are involved, when there's all kinds of human elements that are completely removed when you're just looking at pixels on a screen and it's all about you.
That's right.
So that's a huge part that never gets talked about, and that's, you have to unlearn things. You have to reprogram yourself because you've spent all this effort, energy, and time, years, bonding, using that tape, bonding to what's on the screen as opposed to another person. So it's a complete rewiring process that's really, really challenging for most people.
You need something that'll give you a visual for that. It's the backward bicycle. A guy named Destin that does, can't remember the name of the little thing that he does, but you can search that video, and it talks about the neural pathways in the brain and what
excellent.
How you learn how to ride a bike one way, and then you try to learn it with an extra gear in it, and it creates a whole different pathway in the brain. So it's a really cool visual of that.
Let's hit the helping and healing here. We get the data, and knowledge is power, but what do we do with that? What do we do with that? One thing that I tell parents and try to remind myself is, how much privacy do they really need? Like you're saying, as a parent or a minister, We're in the business of shepherding to some degree them to being, number one, followers of Jesus. Number two, that should automatically lead to be a good citizen of the kingdom. And so what can we do as individuals, as parents, as the church to kind of meet those deficits?
It can never be one conversation. It can never be the talk. It has to be a series of talks, and it has to be in the spiritual context. I think taking 1 Corinthians 5, 6, and 7 is a good place to start. I think teaching our kids how their brains work and how things are addictive, why the things are addictive to them. I think being open and honest is the only path forward that we can take. Not having sex outside of marriage can be harmful or is harmful. Why? Well, because sex is a spiritual thing. It's not a physical act. And when you teach kids from an early age that it is a bonding, it is a giving of self, it is a vulnerable state, that's very, very different. And it begins to answer other questions, or at least leads to better questions, and not just, why can't I do this?
Jason, one of the things that I've seen as far as youth ministry goes is young people coming to me and saying, hey, I've got this problem, whether it be lustful content, pornography, whatever category we want to put it in. And it is stuff that they have searched, but the whole algorithms of social media, the internet, keeps pushing these things back towards them. And so we're talking about things that can be helpful. You've mentioned a lot of different companies, whether it be Bart, Covenant Eyes, Ben, you mentioned that, several others. Is there a way for us to out-algorithm the algorithms? And you may even, for parents or people that may not be as tech savvy in the world today, what are the algorithms doing to us in pushing this content?
So the algorithm, great question, by the way. Algorithms are changed pretty regularly on most platforms, but generally speaking, they're going to take your pattern of behavior, what you look at, the images, the accounts that you follow, the accounts that you pause and look at for a certain amount of time. They're going to take into account the accounts that you follow and what they follow as well. So there's some secondary collateral, I guess, that you participate in by being friends with your friends, and if they follow other content or if they're interested in other content. So if you are overlap with this group of 20 people, you guys are all friends and mutual friends. Well, then what 5 of those people, they follow this one account, they're going to take a chance and say, it's probably reasonable that Will also would like this account because they have all these mutual friends. So algorithms, and they're AI generated. So basically that means that data is fed to this model or this algorithm, and that's how it computes and predicts. AI algorithms are designed to predict behavior, and they take past behavior and they take group behavior and they analyze that, and they very, very quickly compute a predicted behavior with increasing accuracy, because the algorithm is based off of the human brain. You will have random thoughts that come into your mind. A thought is simply a thought. You don't pursue every thought. You don't cultivate. You don't actually continue to play out every thought that you have that comes through your brain. You have millions of them a day, based off of what you see, what you hear, what you remember, your experiences, and your experience with other people. And so this algorithm mirrors your brain in a lot of ways. So it's learning you while also training you in a lot, because it's going to feed you a rabbit hole here and there. Excuse me. If you go through Instagram, you click on the little magnifying glass and you type in something to search. The fact that you typed in the search, that's going to weigh very heavily on the type of content that's related to that person's profile or that topic or that hashtag, and it's going to populate based off of that. And as you go through and you click and you say, oh, so-and-so, a mutual friend, has also liked this picture or this account, excuse me, it's going to continue to generate that. So more overlap, the more content, mutual content you'll see. But then also it's going to say, oh, well, you're a 38-year-old male. I bet you're going to like this. And it's going to insert that in there as well. And so as you're going through and you see stuff you don't want to see, you can click the 3 little buttons at the top and you can click, I forget how it's worded on it's worded different on each app, but basically I don't want to see this content or not interested. And then it'll ask you why. You can answer why, or you can just say not interested, and it'll get rid of that one. So you can Make sure that accounts don't pop into your feed anymore. You can do that to curate based off what you do see and what you tell it you don't want to see. Because the algorithm, it's not neutral. No algorithm has ever been written that was neutral. It's all written with a direction in mind. But you can also train your algorithm to tell it explicitly what you don't
So I need
have
Jason,
some control there.
you to instruct me on how to get all this Tennessee volunteer stuff off my. I guess
See,
stop
it
letting.
keeps creeping in.
Stop letting them make me so mad. But even
that's part of it. Yeah.
Even the thing you pause on, right, and you read it.
Yeah.
You take a minute to read it, and you even go, "Man, I hate that. That's so dumb." You don't even reply.
Yeah.
But you pause long enough.
What you talk about.
Yeah.
What you talk about, even when your phone is not out necessarily.
Yeah.
When my daughter was like 2 or 3 years old, I was scrolling through Instagram. This is when Instagram really started putting ads in your general feed, and Boudreaux's butt cream popped up. And those of you that are parents know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Diaper rash cream. I'm like, man, like I've never said that word out loud. Yet it knew that I was a father now. It knew, all this and so. So there's some of it from an algorithm standpoint that you can't avoid of what it shows you, at least initially, but you're in control of what you cultivate and what you continue to search for. It'll continue to make a heavy way. If you search for Alabama football for a week straight, and that's all you look at Alabama content, and then you take another week and you start searching for, I can't even say for another school. We'll say Maryland.
The team that shall not be named.
Yeah, exactly. A team that shall not be named, or any of them for that matter. What's Washington? You search for Washington Huskies. You do that for a week. You're going to see like a majority crimson image pop up, and it's going to move from crimson to purple over the course of 2 weeks because what you're feeding it, it's going to then mirror back to you, while also every now and then inserting some other things, just taking a chance, so to speak. But it's based on a variety of factors, and that's why it's so difficult. That's why like online marketing is a challenge, because once you start to kind of crack the algorithm, so to speak, they change it because Instagram used to be chronological, and then one day you went on your feed and you like, this post is from 3 weeks ago. What in the world? It's been really, really frustrating with Alabama and Brave sports stuff because I'm at breaking. Like this was breaking in September. It's January now.
Yes,
but that's by design to try to pique curiosity.
So is it fair to say, and maybe just the shout out from the youth minister of the crew, for parents, if they want to know what's going on in their kids' lives, hey, scroll through their social media, and you probably will have a good idea.
Yeah, it's likely. Now, don't look at every image and say this is what they're. They may not, because again, if they're a teenage boy, then popular teenage boy content will also be mixed in there. But absolutely, search histories are a great place to look. And when it comes to privacy, I do believe that we have to teach kids. We need to give kids privacy to some degree. But when it comes to social media, when it comes to technology, it's kind of like the car. You have the ability to drive the family car, but it is not yours, and it is not yours exclusively. And so you have the ability to have access to this within the context of some other things that we talk about. And I think where parents sometimes go wrong is they don't explicitly say those things. So they assume, that's my phone. Well, before a kid ever gets a cell phone, and this kind of goes back to our previous conversation of incremental liberty, incremental freedom, once they show a consistent pattern of maturity and responsibility. And I think you have these really hard conversations. There's a book called Your Brain on Porn. That's a really short book. It's really, really good. It's got a lot of it's really well cited, a lot of academic research there, but it's not written on an academic level necessarily. It's very accessible for everybody. Why not make your kid read that? When they're 16, 17 years old, or maybe younger. I would probably say that's about as young as I would go with it. But tell them, okay, you read this and then come and tell me why it's responsible for me to give you unfiltered access to this stuff. And the guy that wrote that book is not a Christian either, by the way, but it's exceptionally well written and really points to scripture. If you're a Christian reading, you're like, oh, this is what the Bible says, but it gives the academic scientific research side of it.
I know that X, aka Twitter, is not regulated at all. You can regulate it yourself. You can put, I mean, there's words that I have blocked, associated with some of those skills we would mention. Or finally, political stuff. I finally had to hey, block this.
Oh,
you
man.
can do that, but
Yeah.
you have to go and do it yourself. I mean, there's access to whatever a kid could want. And so if they have a Twitter account, and like I've always said, if you're having a great day and you need it ruined, just get on Twitter, or I guess X now, because they'll fix that for you really, really quickly. And that's the one that I'm just like, ooh, you got to be careful on, for sure.
No, you are, there's a saying that you have to be, when you're in the hospital, you're responsible for your health care to really the fullest extent. And you are, you certainly are. When it comes to spiritual welfare of our kids, I am the responsibility. My kids are my responsibility to steward as best as I possibly can. And so I want to limit that access until they can, chemically and neurologically make sound decisions. But I can't just keep them from it either, because then when they do get access in college or when they're out of the house, they have no skills to do so. So it's like telling your kid, you can never get behind the wheel. We're not ever going to talk about cars. We're not going to talk about the drive. You're going to wear a blindfold when daddy drives in the car. Keeping them completely shielded from that. And then say, okay, go have a road trip. That's setting yourself and themselves up for failure as well. So it is an incremental process. It's a series of conversations at every stage of development of teaching them about their bodies, about other people's bodies, and God's plan for our bodies, and how that fits in with God's plan for our souls and for our marriages and for our families. It's just a lot. It is a lot. But there's a phrase that I just kind of tell myself over and over again is, this is what I signed up for. I didn't necessarily know. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but when you get married, Whitney didn't know that she was signing up to care for you with leukemia, but that's what she signed up for, right, Travis? I mean, that's we don't know exactly all the details we're getting into. As parents, but you do it because we have the privilege and honor of being parents and the responsibility. So we lose sleep, but we also find joy in this part of it. I think that's really important to understand. And as a minister, we're helping to heal hearts, and we're helping to grow souls. And there's not a sin that I think is in this realm that's too far for God to provide healing for. But it is a really, really difficult mountain to climb, and we have to be very diligent to both be accountable and encouraging to people. When people confess, be a person that is respectable and that is honorable enough to receive a confession from someone. If somebody's confessing this kind of sin to you, there's very little you have to do other than love them, tell them you love them, and to pray with them that God has forgiven them. Because really the hardest person for them to forgive is going to be themselves in the midst of all this. And then learning more about how our brains work, I think, can be hugely impactful. That's where Ben at the counseling world has, I think, been a blessing to so many people. I'm grateful for what you do specifically and others in your field that can give people the tools they need to reprogram, so to speak, how they think about these things. It's just really, really important for this to be talked about.
Well, we're thankful for what you do and what you do in churches. And, thinking about that, I'm sure that there are going to be people who listen to these episodes, and they will want you to come and talk to their church or present some material or guide them to that material. So tell us a little bit about how they can do that.
Certainly. So my email address is jason@madisonchurch.org. I'm on Instagram, jmhelton7, also on Facebook. And so you can reach me on any of those platforms, or you can call the church building at the Madison Church of Christ. We're just outside of Huntsville, Alabama. And in any way you want to get a hold of me, that's great, or through you guys. But I'd certainly be happy to talk with anyone, any congregation, or any individual. This is something that has become a greater passion of mine, especially over the last couple of years, simply because I just don't think we have enough resources out there. I have a list of books on an Amazon list that I would recommend that I use for a great deal of my research, as well as a YouTube playlist that's got a lot of TED Talks and other conversations from different parts of the world, not necessarily all spiritual, but all certainly contribute to this particular conversation. I think we need to be more learned, and we have to educate ourselves. And most people, especially in the church, just don't know where to go to begin to be prepared and equipped. So that's part of what we're hoping to do. And grateful to you guys for the opportunity on your platform to speak openly about these things, and to really hopefully make a positive impact and let people know there's help. There's absolutely help out there, and it's a fight worth fighting. Absolutely.
I'm sure we can share those links below to your lists and all of those things as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
You mentioned helping, you mentioned healing, and so we'll do a little get to know you. Maybe some humor will come out. If you could have dinner with someone from the Bible who is not Jesus Christ, who would you have that meal with?
Maybe I'll go with my namesake. And in the book of Acts, there's a fellow named Jason, and has a really interesting interaction there. I think that would be interesting to see what a first century Jason looked like, and then just to talk with him about that experience. But obviously, the Apostle Paul too would be tremendous. I don't know, some of the guys that he mentions at the end of his letters, that's all we get is that, oh yeah, and that guy. I'd like to talk with those folks. How did you get on Paul's list? What was remarkable?
That Romans 16. Let me just have all those people together. Let's.
That's right. That's right. Ultimately, you said I couldn't have a meal with Jesus, but I just want to ask him, what did you write in the dirt, man? What was it?
Yeah.
That's I got to know. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of comes into this conversation a little bit because that was kind of one of those interesting moments where somebody's pulled out of a situation. So that would
absolutely.
be cool.
So when you mentioned Jason in the book of Acts, all I saw was the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other from.
That's it.
All pointing at each other. So maybe we could recreate that. But I will say that is the most out of left field pull answer that anybody's had. I was not expecting that. So there you
People
go.
don't know he's in the Bible. I sort of envision like E.T., the L-E-I kind of thing. We both just, I don't know, a single finger touch there. I feel like that would be, I don't know, it'd probably be really weird, just as weird as it is saying it out loud here. But, give it a whirl.
Jason, I appreciate your willingness, A, to go dive into this data, and then B, share it. I remember even as a youth minister before I was even married, I can think of times where I covered this topic in mixed company because it was too important not to. And I knew
100% agree.
There'd be some people that didn't like it. I somehow kept my job, maybe because all the students kept their mouth shut. But, it's just things that need to be talked about. And the big thing, like you said, as somebody who has struggled with lust in my life and had those unfortunate conversations and uncomfortable conversations, we want you, if you're listening to this, if this is something you're dealing with, you've struggled with, as mentioned, there is a lot of hope in it. God is victorious. He loves to redeem. He loves to come in the clutch. This, one of our favorite sayings on this podcast is when God shows up and shows out. English teachers hate that phrase, but we love it because that's what we're about here. And God can show up in whatever circumstance you're in as you listen to this, and he will show out because that's who he is. And he loves us, and any situation and circumstance can be redeemed. If there's a way we can help you or Jason can help you, we would love to do that. And just reach out. You can get a hold of us at hello@benandtravis.com, and we'll get you kind of pointed in the right direction in your area. So thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.